Today marks 1 year since the creation of Muptown Funk, and in that time we've created 18 videos, 2 live streams, 2 YouTube shorts, 11 character deep dives, 4 history lesson episodes, 1 ranking video, 1 news video, and 1 hour-long retrospective. And in doing that, we've covered a lot of ground and told a lot of fun stories from the history of the Muppets and Sesame Street. But every once in a while, you're gonna miss out on some information, and that's what I'm here for today. Hello everybody, and welcome back to yet another video, and to what I'm very excited for. To celebrate 1 year of Muptown Funk, we're doing our first ever catch-up video. The purpose of this video is to go back through the catalog of uploads I've made in the past year, and add new and updated information to some of them where I feel it's necessary. Some of these things will come from comments you guys have left, leaving interesting tidbits that I'd like to address. Other things will be corrections to mistakes I've made. Other things will be new segments that I think should have been in those videos. And all while doing that, I'll be reflecting on this channel's growth in the past year. So, let's begin by going back to our first episode, Muppet Deep Dives, Rolf. For a year-old video, I think the Rolf Deep Dive still really holds up. One thing that I really appreciate about it looking back is the length of the episode. Despite covering one of the most prominent Muppet characters out there, I was able to keep it to a concise 13 minutes. More recent deep dives on significant characters like the Cookie Monster and Uncle Deadly ones have been significantly longer, bordering on 20 minutes each. Looking back, I really like how I consolidated the information in this episode to this 14-minute length. But if there's one thing I'd like to go back and add, it's a merchandise section. I started talking about character merchandise in the second deep dive, the one on New Zealand, and it's bugged me ever since that I wasn't able to include it with Rolf, so I'm making up for lost time now. Let's begin. Due to his sheer prominence in the Muppet cast, Rolf has had a wide variety of merchandise over the years, including one of the first ever pieces of Muppet merchandise in 1966. A Rolf puppet was sold alongside a Kermit puppet wearing a red sweater for some reason, as part of the first ever licensed Muppet plush line produced by Ideal Toys. These puppets have easily one of the strangest Muppet ads I think I've ever seen, where the real Rolf tries to advertise them to you, and the Kermits threaten to break your arms if you don't buy them.
So buy us at once a bundle of charms.
And if you don't buy us, we'll break both your arms.
Also in the commercial, they were advertising a Snurf puppet, which didn't actually exist, apparently. This is so weird. I honestly need to dedicate an entire video to this. Rolf's Palisades figure is a pretty infamous one. Released as part of Series 3 in early 2003, it depicts Rolf in his tuxedo for some reason, instead of just not wearing anything like he typically does. A white tuxedo repaint of this figure had previously been given out at Toy Fair the previous year, 2002. And it wouldn't take until 2004 for a naked Rolf figure to be released, packed in exclusively with the Backstage playset, which nowadays is one of the rarest pieces in the entire collection. The decision to pack Rolf with his tuxedo for his single release has always been so strange to me, and really did nothing but screw over collectors in the long run. Several Palisades Rolf figures were cancelled. The Muppet line ended at Series 9, but if it continued to Series 10, they would have made Dr. Bob, who was pretty far into production. Series 10 would have started producing Muppet Babies figures, packed in sets of 2. Rolf and Gonzo were set for Series 11, apparently. Rolf figures were also planned but scrapped for the Mega Muppets and Mini Muppets lines, with us only having an image of the latter. After his Ideal Toys release in the 1960s, it would take until 2014 and the release of Muppets Most Wanted for another large-scale Rolf plush to be released. It stands at around a foot tall and was made by the Disney Store. I've had it since it came out, and I think it has one of the best likenesses we've seen on Rolf merchandise. While over the decades, Rolf's merchandise appearances have been pretty spotty, in the past few years, he's been pretty consistently released in nearly every line of Muppet merchandise you could find. He had a Tsum Tsum, a Doorables figure, a Lego minifigure in the Muppet Minifigure series, and he's also been released a few different times in the Diamond Select Muppet line. Next, I'd like to give an update on the Muppet history lesson about the Kermit drinking tea ads and the meme that spawned from it. Luckily for us, Disney and the Muppets have not referenced this meme in the past year, which is good because they have a tendency to kind of run it into the ground still to this day. I did, however, recently read a leak for an upcoming Muppet Funko Pop labeled as Kermit drinking tea. But when that was revealed, it was actually not that. It was instead Kermit with his Kermit mug frowning. I wish I could get it, but it's going to be a Comic-Con exclusive. So we almost had a tea lizard reference in 2024, but we didn't. I don't know if this was like planned to be Kermit drinking tea originally and they changed it, or if the person who reported on the leak simply misinterpreted what it was. I assume it's probably the latter, but still, I think this one looks pretty funny. To my surprise, the Muppet Deep Dive episode on Thog really blew up and is to this day the channel's most viewed video. Guess people really do love their Muppet monsters, huh? Unless they're little Muppet monsters. That show lasted like 3 episodes. But there's something I need to address, something that's been bothering me ever since I made the video back last August, something that I put in a pinned comment under it. I accidentally said that Cosmo Scam was played by Harvey Korman. He wasn't. He was played by Art Carney, something that I knew and was fully well aware of while making the video. I just accidentally said the wrong name. There's a part later on in the video where I talk about Thog's appearance in the Harvey Korman episode of The Muppet Show. I just accidentally said the wrong name there. Yes, I do know the difference between these two. I've seen the Star Wars Holiday Special. I know the difference, guys. Other than that, I want to talk about some interesting things that you guys pointed out to me in the comments of this video. Up first, Lord Moloch says, Thig's short-lived role was most definitely because of Frank Oz's outspoken hatred towards performing full-body Muppets. He never really spoke about his role as Thig, but does mention that those roles were never supposed to last long. I got a lot of comments wondering what happened to Thig, and that seems like a pretty fair assumption. Another commenter let me know that the original Thog puppet had to be rebuilt for the 2011 Muppet movie because it had been destroyed in storage with the foam deteriorating over the last 30 years. A real shame that this is a fate that several Muppets have met over the decades. Thanks for letting me know, Thog. Glad to see you're doing better now, even if you did grow quite a bit. And finally, for Thog, Tori Schmidt let me know that I actually missed a piece of Thog merchandise. There's another one out there. In 1978, there was a set of papier-mâché Muppet ornaments made by a company called Sigma Ceramics. They produced several characters, including Kermit, Piggy, Fozzie, Rolf, Animal, and for some reason, Thog, who's holding a present. He's got little reindeer antlers, and I think he's pretty great. I haven't looked into it, but I'd assume this is probably pretty hard to find in good condition these days, so sorry to all my Thog collectors, it's still pretty rough out there. Muppet Deep Dives, Danny Trejo. I've always loved doing these real person deep dive episodes. It's something I'd like to do a lot more of in the future, and Danny Trejo was certainly a great choice for one of them, with his tendency to just appear in everything the Muppets make these days. At the time of that video's release, I decided not to state what Danny Trejo's cameo in the Muppets Mayhem was, since it had just been released a few months prior, but now that it's been over a year, I think it's time we finally talk about it. In the first episode of the series, Can You Picture That?, the Electric Mayhem, getting ready to produce their first ever album, go to a house to stay at that they apparently used to work in all the time back in the day. Realizing that it looks bland, they decide to paint it in a montage referencing the iconic Can You Picture That sequence from the first Muppet movie. They sing the song, they do the thing where Dr. Teeth drops paint all over the camera and everything, and they totally redo the house to be this psychedelic painted nightmare. But in what's easily one of the funniest jokes in this series, it's revealed that the entire time, this wasn't their house. It was Danny Trejo's. Danny Trejo then shows up a bit later on when the Electric Mayhem is performing in the backyard. Man, I absolutely adored the Muppets Mayhem. I think it's the funniest thing the Muppets have done in years. It's a shame. At this point, I highly doubt it'll get a second season. The Muppets, I don't really go into my opinions on this channel much, but I think the Muppets are in such a bad place right now. They really just need something that can last, you know? And it feels like they just don't get that chance very often these days. Which brings us to our next video, which was all about Denise from the ABC Muppet Show. I have no new information or anything to add about this, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that I get comments on that video pretty frequently from fans that are just purely disappointed by the fact that they didn't let the ABC Muppet Show run past one season. And I just wanted to comment on that. I'd love to do a full video breaking down the failure of the ABC Muppet Show in the future. To me, it's one of the most fascinating stories of the Muppets ever. It's just so interesting to me what happened here. But I really think if they'd given it a chance, if they'd given it a bit more time to flourish, it really could have done better, you know? I think it's one of those TV shows that could have easily had this awkward first season, but then it ran for 4 or 5 seasons and it gets so much better as it moves on. But unfortunately, seems ABC was just not willing to give it that chance. It's kind of a microcosm of modern TV, right? Everyone constantly complains about how many good shows there are out there that get canned after just 1 or 2 seasons, while shows nobody really cares for just keep on going and going and going, and it's really a shame. We need to be giving these shows more of a chance to spread their wings and be able to work. The Pigs in Space Deep Dish 9 video was one of my favorites from the channel, but unfortunately, the joke in Muppets Tonight where Leonard Nimoy shows up and claims that in Season 1, Episode 9 of Star Trek, they fought a race of sentient bubbles, that was a lie. That was not true. Several of you pointed out to me that Star Trek has never included sentient bubbles, not in that episode, and not at any later point in the franchise. As this commenter so elegantly put it, the Muppets made Spock lie. The next video I want to talk about is the Vincent Price one, which was an absolute disaster to make. I recorded it and then I got really sick, so I spent a lot of that time editing it, and then was finally ready to get it out, but it got copyright claimed, so I almost canceled the video, and then I realized that I could just mirror the footage over the copyright claimed parts, and it was perfectly fine. So now it's out there, and I think it's another pretty fun episode. Anyway, I did want to talk about a comment from SPC Glider, who said the following. It wasn't that Americans wouldn't understand the Guy Lombardo joke. It was changed because Europeans wouldn't understand it. Americans of the time knew exactly who Guy Lombardo was. His name was synonymous with New Year's Eve. Thus the original punchline, written most likely by Jerry Jewell, an American. This sentiment was echoed by Dan Etkin, who also mentioned the original US broadcast using Lombardo as the punchline before it got changed to the alternative Jack Parnell joke later, which adds a whole other layer to this story. Thank you so much for the clarification, as always. Beyond the Muppets, I'm really not all that well versed in classic TV and TV personalities. It's something I really need to make sure I do better research on in the future when addressing things like this. The Tale of Lady Gaga and the Muppets Holiday Spectacular, a retrospective, was my holiday special for 2023, and I think it's easily my best work here on Muptown Funk. I loved being able to dive into this strange Muppet holiday special and really kind of go deeper than just that by looking at where the Muppets were at the time and where Lady Gaga was in her career at the time. I've been a big fan of hers for a long time, so it was really cool to be able to talk about what's seen as one of the most controversial points in her career as a performer and tie that into the Muppets and how she's kind of been able to move on and break past this hard time while the Muppets have kind of gotten stuck in the modern day, kind of lacking purpose for themselves right now. Content like this is what I really want to focus on in the future of Muptown Funk, just being able to tell these interesting, weird stories from across the Muppets' long history. I'll leave a link to this video up in the cards right now. Definitely make sure to check it out if you haven't before. Like I said earlier, I really think it's my best work here on the channel. The video is currently blocked in the UK though. I'm gonna have to do something about that. There are a few things I want to bring up regarding this video. Up first is a small correction to a mistake I made. In the video I mentioned that Lady Gaga owned a dog named Fozzie, or Fozzie Bear. That actually isn't hers. It belonged to her hairstylist, Frederick Aspiras, and unfortunately, in 2024, Fozzie Bear the dog passed away. Aspiras had owned him since 2012. It's really sad to see him go. I also want to talk about a segment I had to cut from the retrospective. While doing my research, I learned that Lady Gaga and Kermit were both interviewed regarding the special on ABC Nightline while it was being filmed. And I wanted to include a segment about this in the retrospective, but unfortunately it was taking so long to make and I just wasn't able to fit it in, so I'm going to talk about it now. On October 8th, 2013, Lady Gaga and Kermit were both interviewed for ABC Nightline. This would have taken place during the filming of the special, and the interview was actually conducted in one of the special sets. This is the dressing room that she's in for a brief part of it. You even see the same door from the special. The interview features a few clips of the special, which would have been their first time being shown to the public. There's a brief segment of the gypsy scene, and the dressing room sequence as well. But most of the interview is dedicated to a segment where the interviewer talks to Kermit and Lady Gaga, and you get some more fun interactions between the two of them. Their interactions were easily my favorite part of the special. It's just fun to see the two of them just go off the cuff and have these casual conversations. Lady Gaga asking Kermit about his fans and about his home life. I really like the fact that she mentioned she's been to his house.
He's
Stuff
a
like
fabulous pad. You should go sometime.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a great pad. I'll have you over for a mosquito mojito.
Oh, you've been over to his pad?
Yes.
Sure, I see. That's a little...
Yes, but we
watch the paparazzi
don't
maybe.
broadcast that, you see, because Miss Piggy might hear it.
There's actually a part in the special where he tells her she should stop by sometime, and here she says that she's been there, and apparently has a pretty nice place. There's a lot more talk of their alleged love triangle with Miss Piggy, which both of them really try very hard to sweep under the rug and ignore.
Next question.
I've hit a
I think we
nerve.
probably-
I've definitely hit a nerve here.
Yeah, probably not a good thing.
And there's just some more generic, fun Thanksgiving food talk. It's really nice to just get a little bit extra, especially because, like I said, my favorite part of the special was the two of them having conversations like this. The final video I'd like to talk about here is my Waiter Grover ranking video. At this time, I was really struggling with motivation for this channel, and I thought adding in Sesame Street content would be a fun way to change things up. I really enjoyed being able to go back and watch through all of the Waiter Grover sketches and rank them from worst to best, but some comments did point out one I missed, that being the Much Ado About Nothing sketch, which was an episode of Monsterpiece Theater. That's actually why I chose not to include it. It is a Waiter Grover sketch, but it's a Waiter Grover sketch contained in a different series, if that makes sense. I didn't forget to include it, I deliberately chose not to because, again, I saw it as Monsterpiece Theater first, Waiter Grover second, but I'd like to briefly talk about it here and give it an official placement in my ranking. As soon as I watched this for this video, I was genuinely really disappointed that I didn't include it in my original ranking. This honestly has to be one of the best Waiter Grover sketches. Since it's based on an Old English story, it features both Mr. Johnson and Grover speaking in this ridiculous pseudo-Old English the entire time.
You will not regret your choices. Okay, Claudio, stuff the special.
Ah, roast pig doth maketh my mouth watereth.
That gives this one points on its own. The outfits are funny, the set is funny, the whole fact that they make this like a fake period piece makes it absolutely perfect, and easily the best thing about it is that you could tell they had so much fun making this one. It really plays with the tropes of the Waiter Grover formula, plopping it into a new scenario, which is really funny. The plot is pretty simple. Mr. Johnson wants this elaborate meal regarding a suckling pig and a bunch of other pieces, but as you'd expect, Grover repeatedly comes back to him, revealing that, well, they're missing all the different pieces of his meal. And while it is a pretty generic Waiter Grover plot, I think that's perfectly fine because the presentation and setup cause it all to be so much funnier. They really knew what they were doing with this one, and it shows such a great understanding of the segment to be able to do it like this. This might sound surprising, but if I were to officially rank it in my original video, I'd fit it between number 7, Charlie's Russian Restaurant, and number 6, Picture Menu. I would put it a bit higher, but I think it isn't as good as an educational piece as some of the other sketches, and I also just don't think a kid would get as much out of it as I did. And there you have it, guys. This has been everything I've missed in the first year of Muptown Funk. While this channel's upload schedule may be a bit spotty at times, it's something that I've really enjoyed doing, and I think this channel has a very bright future. I have a lot of really fun projects I want to work on in the future. As I said earlier on in the video, I want to focus a lot more on just telling interesting stories from Muppet history, and I have a lot of really fun ones lined up. I'm hoping to get a new video out next week. We'll see if that comes to fruition. I think it's going to be a pretty fun one, but it may be a bit difficult to make. I'll have to look into it a bit more. Won't reveal what it is just yet, but Thank you so much to everyone for sticking around and for checking out the channel and for watching and subscribing and commenting. I really, really appreciate it. It means the world to me. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite video from the channel has been, what your favorite moment over the last year has been, or if I missed anything else I didn't address in this video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.